And hello, movie lovers. And today I actually have a very special guest of mine. It's one of my good friends. It's actually Josh from a Merc with a Movie blog. And we're going to be talking about Scream 3. This is the third film, of course, in the Wes Craven franchise of Scream. So let's go on ahead. Let's get on with it. And hey, Josh, how are you doing?
Hey, how you doing, man? Happy to be back.
Hey, it's good to have you back. I'm actually happy to be able to talk about the third film in the franchise. Of course, I did the second one with Taco, but here's the thing: I like talking Scream with you as well. And of course, it's also the third film in the franchise. And this, I remember going to the theaters and not being, I didn't really enjoy this one as much as the first two films whenever I first saw it in the movie theaters.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely I'll preface by saying I love all these movies, but this is definitely the weakest of the five so far.
I definitely agree with you. As far as part three goes, I don't know what my reviews are going to be whenever I see part four. But for me, as part three, it's actually the weakest, but it's not. It's like, okay, it's good, but it's not the best. And
Yeah,
that's one thing I can say is like, it's not the worst movie out of a franchise that has five movies or anything either. So that's
yeah,
something I really like.
it's true. Like I said, I enjoy all of the movies. I'll sit down and watch them all, in a marathon, no problem. But yeah, this one is definitely the weakest.
Most definitely. So this movie, of course, came out on February 3rd or 4th of the year. Well, actually, February 4th, 2000 in the United States. And this also has a budget of 40 million and made 161.8 million dollars, which is fantastic for a third film within the franchise itself because it could either fall flat or they would be like, well, you know what, this is supposed to be the third one, so it doesn't really matter if it makes its money budget back, but it made quite a splash back then.
Yeah.
So, so of course, it always opens up to that one stab scene where basically you wind up seeing either something that's very meta, like we got in the second film, or we get something that is connected in with the characters. This time we actually get Cotton Weary, and he's actually on his way home and of course, we actually realize too that Cotton is now a big time celebrity now. He's
Yeah.
at a successful talk show called 100% Cotton, and which I think is hilarious. And then stuck in traffic. He gets a phone call, and you're thinking, okay, well, he's on the phone with his girlfriend. Then the phone rings, and so he's sucked into this celebrity life to the point where he has the big head now. It's like, oh, so a fan accidentally calls me, knows who I am, and he
Yeah.
tells his girlfriend, "Please hold for. Hey, look, baby, I'm just gonna have to call you back in a few minutes."
Yeah.
And this is another thing I liked was the fact that he was actually complaining for uh, basically the studios wanting him to do a cameo appearance, and he says, "No, I'm not going to do a cheap cameo appearance in somebody else's movie." And
Yeah.
then I started thinking to myself, well, you are doing a cameo for this movie, and then you did a cameo technically in the second film, even though you had a little bit more of a larger part. So
Yep.
therefore, you're complaining in the movie. So therefore, that's also one of the another hard tropes is I feel like he actually broke one of the rules by complaining about the certain role that he has, and that's also the reason why he probably died as well.
Yeah.
Also, too,
And
it's the
it
third
and
film
it
of the
makes it
trilogy,
real meta too.
right?
Yeah, I mean, granted, the whole movie really kind of is with the movie set and everything. It's all really kind of meta, but that made it a little extra because yeah, like you said, he's complaining about doing a cameo while the actor that himself is doing a cameo. Yeah.
Which I thought was hilarious and also a good way to actually introduce Cotton again. And of course,
Hmm.
during the second movie, all he was complaining about was like, "I need to have my interview. I
Yeah.
want to be interviewed by Diane Sawyer. I want to."
Diane Sawyer. Yep.
It was like the biggest thing. He was like, "I want my Sawyer interview, and you promised me this, Gail." And of course, now he's a big time celebrity, and then he gets that phone call, and Killer's like, "Well, you, well, I'm just going to tell you this, Cotton. You have quite a number on you. You have a really nice girlfriend. Just how do you know I have a girlfriend? Because I'm looking right at her." And
Yeah.
then that's when it goes high speeding through the traffic,
Yeah.
everything, and gets there. And of course, I like how they use this trick with the voices now, where now it's their
Yeah.
voice, which is
Hmm.
very different.
Yeah, it because it really helps to point the finger at multiple different people, and it throws because at one point the actual killer just uses his voice. And but the audience doesn't realize that's what's happening, and they just assume, oh, okay, Ghostface is just using he's pretending, using whatever this modulator thing is, to mock that voice, and so it throws you away from who it actually is, which is interesting.
Very. And then, of course, she's showering, and then Khan's on his way home. She's getting
Mhm.
attacked by the killer. And then finally, Khan gets there. You're thinking, okay, well, maybe Khan actually does show up on time before the killer even gets a chance to kill her. And then she's thinking that maybe Khan's actually taken his stab games a little too far.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting because it shows that he apparently does that kind of thing a lot, where he messes with his girlfriend and plays these games with her, that to the point where she's getting tired of it. And it's like, really, dude? Like, I understand that's kind of enveloped your whole life for years now, but like, come on, like, I don't know. It makes
Exactly,
him out
because
to be kind of a bigger douche than he was before.
I understand that he was framed for the murder and stuff like that of Sydney's mother, but you're going to go to the extreme of terrorizing your girlfriend with the thing that you wind up getting framed for. That's pretty jacked up.
Yeah, and I doubt that she enjoys this because she seems to be annoyed by it in the first place. So, like, she's probably expressed that annoyance at it before, and yet he continues to do it.
Exactly. And then, you know, she thinks it's him because the killer's using his voice, and then whenever he finally gets there, and I like how she's still alive. We're like, okay, thank God she's still alive, but at the same time, you feel bad for Cotton because of the fact that it's not really him, and therefore the killer's framing him to make him look like he was the one who was actually attacking her whenever he wasn't.
Yeah.
Then, of course, Ghostface comes out from behind the door, and then he winds up getting into a tug of war match with Cotton, and then he winds up taking a golf club. Khan winds up taking a golf club, trying to take a swing at Ghostface. Ghostface goes on ahead, takes the golf club away from him. Also, too, before that happens, you wind up having the girlfriend getting stabbed in the back after Cotton winds up telling her to look behind her, just as the audience would actually imply to look behind her.
Yeah. Yeah, he was yelling at her the way, I'm sure people in the audience were doing the same thing.
Right. And then, so after that winds up happening, he winds up stabbing Cotton, and then it opens up to Sydney. And this is where the whole entire plot comes through, where basically we have, we basically wind up seeing Sydney now. It's been a couple of years since the confrontation between Ghostface and her in college. She's now working for 911, but not using her real name anymore. So that way she can hide from the killer. I thought that was actually a really interesting take of the fact, like, okay, well, if this killer comes at me again, I'm just going to go in and hide out in the hills where nobody else can find me and change my name. And so that way I can actually move on with my life.
Yeah.
So I really thought that was very, very good.
Oh yeah. Yeah, she goes completely off the grid, for the most part. Um, yeah, I like there's some stuff that kind of happens with her out there, which you haven't gotten to yet, which I'll talk about when we get there, but um it makes her character fairly interesting, I think, in this one. So
Right, because I put her in the same category as Lori in a sense, where
yeah.
basically in the first one she's pretty much a tough badass. Though in the first movie she's not like a dazzle in distress or anything like that, but you can tell
No.
that she's scared of Ghostface. She doesn't quite know what's going on around her and not very self-aware. And then in the second one, she becomes very self-aware of the things around her to the point where she knows how to survive this, but also too there's new rules and stuff like that within the second movie that sets up for something else. So therefore, she's even having to be more self-aware than what she normally is.
Yeah.
And then in the third one, it shows really a lot of strength that she has after facing against Ghostface twice and surviving. So that's something I really liked.
Yeah.
And then, of course, this also introduced Detective Mark Kincaid. He contacts Gail Weathers to discuss the recent murders, prompting her to travel to Hollywood, where she finds Dewey working as an advisor on the set of Stab 3, the third film in the series based on the Ghostface murders.
They cranked these things out quick, man. Because the second movie that it's the first Stab, and between that and this one, they had already pumped out another Stab movie.
Well, I think of it like this, okay? Like the last two were like back to back with Scream 1 and Scream 2.
Yeah.
So therefore, it's kind of like very meta because it's actually a couple of years later. So a couple of years, you actually have your third movie. So just like how they would have their third movie. So it actually makes sense of the time jump as to why they actually have 3 movies now.
Yeah,
in a
I
sense.
get that. Yeah, makes sense.
At least that's how I'm understanding it.
Yeah.
But I definitely like how all the actors or anything like that are also on the set. He goes, well, this is it. They're going to cancel our show because of the fact that they're blaming violence with movies, and then we're just like, relax, it's okay. It's not even connected to us or anything like that. This is just one murder. It doesn't mean that it's going to be connected to us. We're going to be fine. And next thing you know it, they wind up finding out that it's actually linked to Sydney, which also leads to them being shut down for the production of the film.
Yeah.
So after that, they're out of the job.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I thought it was kind of ironic to see Dewey being someone that would actually provide information.
Yeah.
To this, I thought this would be Gale that would do that.
I think it's because he is the most manipulative, most able to be manipulated. You know what I mean? Like Gale would either not give up the information that they would want or would require too much in return. Whereas Dewey, he's such a nice guy. He's willing to help out and talk about. I think that's a big part of why.
That's true too. Being from a small town, he's a cop, ex-cop, former cop, and who actually was part of these murders. So therefore, he's like, you know what? For a couple of thousand or whatever, I'll go ahead and be an advisor for you guys.
Yeah,
and be manipulated into this whole entire thing to where he gets sucked in to the point where he actually loses himself within this world and forgetting the fact of the things that Sydney actually went through.
Yeah.
Although he's also gotten stabbed in the back and stuff like that too in the second movie
and the first
movie.
Yeah.
But another thing I liked about this was I mentioned this in the second movie review, where basically I like how they have a theme song for Dewey and has this kind of Western kind of vibe to it.
Yeah.
This one is more of a slowed down version of the one that we got from Scream 2, where it was basically it's a slow down Western kind of feel to it because of the fact that they're describing the hurt that he feels in that lost within himself because of the fact that him and Gil are not together anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
that was one of the things that I disliked that they did in this one. It was that they split them apart like that, because I really liked them. And it's funny because I mean, I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but like at the end, he proposes and everything. But when I was kind of looking into everything, I found out that David Arquette and Courtney Cox got married a month before they started shooting this movie.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. They got married June of '99, and this started filming in July.
That's amazing. I didn't know that. I wasn't sure if they got married or this was actually on the verge of them almost splitting up themselves. So I wasn't sure if it was one of the two. I know that they were together, or they met on the set of Scream 1, and they were together since then, but I didn't know about that part.
Yeah. So I thought that was really cool, especially with the ending and everything. So
same.
Yeah.
And then and then of course he winds up calling Gail out on her stuff, and she goes, "What are you doing over here investigating?" "Oh, I'm here with the detective." "Oh, really? What about this?" And she goes, "Well, you have a camera on you." "What makes you think I have a camera?" "That's the same purse I bought you."
Yeah, I love that. He knew right away.
But I also like the fact that he chose someone to play him. And he's like this macho kind of guy, good looking, nothing like what Dewey actually looks like, because that's actually how Dewey sees himself as. So therefore, that's why he picked that
funny
person.
Because in the other Scream or in the other Stab movies, they say it's David Schwimmer who plays his character, which is funny because of the Courtney Cox and the Friends whole thing. Um, but I think David Schwimmer fits that type way better than this new guy. So I think that's really funny that he went a little different route when he got to say.
Definitely. And then you have, let's see. Then of course, Ghostface kills Stab 3 actress Sarah Darling, causing production of Stab to be halted. So that's two murders happening within the in the time frame. And like I said, whenever we first get caught, and at first they're like, okay, well, it's not any connection to us, so therefore we can still do the production of this movie. And then of course the killer also left them the picture of Sydney's mom, which also links Sydney back into everything. And then you also have another thing that winds up happening where you end up having Sarah Darling that winds up dying. And then, of course, that's what's caused them to shut down the set of Stab 3.
Yeah. There was something I wanted to mention, though, that happened before that was actually one of my negatives for this. Now, I love these characters that I'm going to mention. And outside of this movie, love it. But Jay and Silent Bob popping up in this movie just did not fit.
No.
It feels so awkward and out of place. The scene by itself is funny and would have fit in like Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. It would have been hilarious.
Right.
But it just doesn't fit here. And I think it's interesting because this film came out in 2000, and then Jay and Silent Bob came out the next year. And Jay and Silent Bob has like scenes that are kind of not similar, but like Wes Craven's in it, and they're doing like a Scream homage thing in the Jay and Silent Bob movie. So it makes me wonder if there was like some sort of you do this for us, we'll do this for you kind of a thing going on between those two productions for some reason. I don't know.
That was also a negative for me as well. I love Jay and Silent Bob. I love seeing them pop up. But at the same time, it takes you out of that element of it being a horror movie to where it becomes like a spoof of its own self.
Yeah, spoof is a perfect word because like there were a few times where I'm like, this feels more like a spoof at times. The Carrie Fisher thing that happens later on is another one where it's like it's not quite as awkward, but it still just doesn't feel like it fits. You know, it feels like it would fit better in like a Kevin Smith movie than it would in this. So yeah, there's a few moments like that.
But even with the over the top part where where you see the Sydney's mom, the nightmare thing that Sydney has, it turns in from a slasher movie to like a vampire-ish kind of movie. And then it goes back to being a slasher movie to the point where you don't know its identity.
Yeah, it's very weird. That scene for a long time bothered me until I allowed myself to just come to terms with the fact that she's got some pretty severe PTSD.
That makes more sense.
And that's really all that is. Because if you look at it by itself, it doesn't really make sense in the story of of everything because they don't really cover it that much. They dip into it a tiny bit. And there's only one other scene in the movie where I'm not honestly sure if she's hallucinating or not. And that's when she's on the set and there's the sheet, like the person under the sheet. That could be Ghostface under the sheet. We don't actually know. She could also just be hallucinating that's a thing. I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll talk about that in a few minutes because I have something to theorize on that part as to what I think it is too, as far as that goes. Then after that winds up happening, we also see the remaining Stab 3 cast along with Dewey and Gil gather up at the home of Jennifer Jolie. Ghostface murders her bodyguard and uses a gas leak to cause the explosion, which kills fellow actor Tom Perez, who plays Dewey, who was supposed to play Dewey. But, okay, so I like how Gail is just fed up at Dewey at this point because all she cares about is getting the report. She doesn't care about anything else. And they're both running up to this house at the same time, going up to the person that's playing Gail's self, And I like how just because, by the way, Gail, your car's still running, and just crap. So she goes on ahead, shuts her, of course, shuts her, car off, and then after that, they go inside, and then the bodyguard does not like Dewey at all
No,
or
he
anything
does
because he
not.
thinks he's trifling on his territory because he's the one who's supposed to be protecting the actress and
Yeah.
not him. So he feels like that he's in violation of her protection.
Yeah.
But what did you think of the bodyguard and how he was supposed to be there, how he was there trying to protect?
I mean, I like Patrick Warburton. I like him as an actor and everything, but I didn't really like this character all that much. I understood his purpose. I understood why he didn't really like Dewey all that much, but I felt like for the most part, he was unnecessary. Really, he was really just there for another body.
Right, to amp the body count up even more when Dewey could have just been there to protect her. It would make more sense because of the fact
Yeah,
that he was an ex-cop.
yeah. Because it's
And
like
that's also
none
another
of the other
gig.
people seem to have a bodyguard. Just
No,
her.
everybody but her.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it would make more sense because of the fact he's a former ex-cop. So, and he is an advisor on the set, but what if he needs like a side gig? That could have been the side gig that he was actually doing. So, it would actually make more sense to him to be a bodyguard for somebody that was on the set.
It would make more sense why he has his Airstream like parked on her, in her yard area or whatever
Right.
near her house too. Yeah.
And I like how Gail even says, "You live with her on on her property." He goes, "Well, she likes having me around more than what I can say about you." So
Yeah.
the little bickering back and forth to me actually works because of the
Oh, yeah.
chemistry that we got with the first two films,
Mhm.
and seeing that, I think that works with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then after that winds up happening, it's actually night now. Everybody's reading their scripts, and one person's tearing their scripts up.
Yeah.
And then you also see the fact that they get a phone call, and they get a phone call where basically it's the killer. And so at that point, that's whenever the killer goes on ahead, shuts the power off at at the house. But before that, Dewey goes, "Okay, just don't panic." And then all of a sudden the lights go out, and then everybody starts panicking.
Yeah.
So I like that moment. And then there's also the part with the fax machine.
Yeah, I really like the fax machine thing. It's like it dates the movie, but it made it really interesting. But here's my thing. If he's nearby at all, where did he get the fax? Like, how is he faxing?
He went to Western Union that was just down the road and be like, "Look, I need you to send this one first."
Yeah. It's like you got to do it at this time, or I'll call you and I'll let you know when to do it. Like, I don't know.
And then I could
Maybe
see the Western Union going, "I will kill you." Gas?
maybe he
What are
has
you
like a
talking
portable
about?
fax machine just like in his car or something. Who knows?
Right? But for that though, it actually, well, it's a smart thing to do, but at the same time, you're wondering how did he manage to get like a fax machine to
So it kind of falls. There's a couple of times throughout this movie where they do things that make you think there's more than one killer. There's an instance where it's almost impossible for it to have only been one, something that happens. When we get to Sydney on the set, I'll bring that up. But
Okay.
there's there are times, and this is kind of one of them, because it's like if there was a second killer, it could have just been the other person doing it. You know what I mean? It wouldn't have been that big of a deal. Wouldn't it would make sense, but there's only the one guy. And so it's
Right.
like how did he manage that?
Because even whenever I saw this in theaters, I'm like, there has to be at least two other killers besides him.
Yeah.
And then whenever I found out it was only one, I'm like, okay, that was kind of lackluster, and because we always had two killers. This is
Yes,
the
I
yeah.
remember when I first saw this, I thought there was gonna be 3 killers, because like, you gotta amp it up, you gotta make it different. It's the 3rd movie, 3 killers. But that didn't happen.
No. And then, like I said, Tom Perez winds up getting killed with the gasoline because of the fact that he actually takes the lighter because everybody else is using a flashlight. to
Yeah.
look at the facts. I would think like, hey, dude, you needed my flashlight, but no one even thinks about even giving the guy the flashlight
Yeah.
to use or anything like that. So he gets he goes on ahead, gets a lighter. He winds up saying, "I will spare everybody else, all but one who can smell the gas." And he goes, "Smell the gas," and then all of a sudden the house blows up. Gail and all the actors and actresses fly over the hill. They all wind up rolling on the ground. Then, of course, you see Ghostface near the van, and then Dewey's. And you're thinking that Gail's gonna die.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And Dewey shoots Ghostface in the chest like 3 times. Like he hits him in the chest. And so right there, you're like, well, how is he gone? How did he survive? Like, is because like later on when they do the Randy thing, they talk about the whole the killer is supernatural in the 3rd movie and everything like that. And so they lean into that. We obviously learn later on why that is able to happen, but it because it makes Dewey doubt himself. He's like, oh, I guess I must have missed. But here's my thing. He's a damn good shot if he's way up on that hill and he's knocking shots into this dude's chest from that far away up on a hill, man.
Right. You can clearly see that he did hit his mark. But I like the fact, too, that you're also making Dewey second guess himself to the point where he also feels vulnerable again because of the fact that, his love life's already in shambles. This killer's back again. And now you're not sure if you even hit your target that you're supposed to. And you're supposed to be protecting this other actress, too. And you're kind of second guessing yourself to the point where it's like, damn, what gives in a sense.
And like, Gale theoretically then could have died because if he, if he isn't able to hit that target, what could happen, And so I think, it really messes with him a little bit.
Definitely. And then, of course, like we said, Sydney is in solitary as a crisis counselor for an abused woman's hotline. Fearing that another killer might strike, having discovered Sydney's location, the killer begins taunting her with her phone by using a voice changer to sound like her deceased mother, Maureen Prescott, forcing her out of hiding and drawing her to Hollywood.
Yeah. Okay. So here's my thing. How did he get her number?
Well, remember, too, the cops did mention the fact that, or Dewey mentioned the fact that somebody did raid the police department, and they did yank. Get this, Dewey winds up taking the file before it got ransacked.
Yeah,
right.
He took the file. The only other thing I could think of, because originally I thought, well, maybe Dewey lent him his phone, because we see him do that with Kincaid. He just freely lends Kincaid his phone. But he later on says the only people that he's let borrow his phone were Kincaid and whatever fake Gail's name is. I can't remember what her name is. So he doesn't ever mention anybody else. So I'm wondering if he just kind of lifted Dewey's phone and got the number from it. I don't know. That's my theory on it, because that would probably be the easiest way. Dewey just kind of leaves his coat or something with his phone in the pocket. He just lifts it out, grabs the number, boom, ready to go.
Right.
Because he obviously didn't have the number at the beginning, because that was the whole point with Cotton, is he was trying to find her.
Right. He wanted information out on Sydney, and then that caused him to die in the first place.
Yeah.
And he didn't get it, and so therefore he ransacks the sheriff's office over at their town.
Yeah.
And he still didn't get what he wanted. So the only way to do that is to use Dewey as bait.
Yeah.
To be able to do that. And so at that point, I actually like the fact that he's using Sydney as a way of luring her into Hollywood this way.
Yeah.
And using her deceased mother in that kind of way, because we know some things about her mother, but not everything about her mother at this point.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah, we know very little before this, and this movie really just opens it up, all the information about Maureen. Yeah.
So after that winds up happening, Martha Meeks, the sister of Sydney's friend Randy, who has murdered while Sydney was in college. visits Sydney and the others to deliver a videotape which Randy made before his death, which is also called Scary Movie 101, which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah.
And he ends up warning them that the rules of a horror film do not apply to anyone in the third and final film of a horror trilogy, and that any of them, including the main character Sydney, could die. Sydney is later attacked by Ghostface at a movie set, forcing the police to keep Sydney safe at their station.
Yeah. And
So,
it's funny
yeah.
because now it's no longer a trilogy. At that time that was kind of their plan, obviously, but that changed. 10 years later. But I don't know if you noticed this. It was something that I noticed and I thought was really cool. Sydney is wearing the Greek letters from her college boyfriend, which I
Yeah,
thought
I
was
noticed
really
it.
cool. I thought that was really a nice little um thing to put into the movie, because they didn't have to do that. They didn't want to, but I thought that was a nice piece of almost like continuity to throw in there.
Definitely. That's what I like about this is the fact that you have continuity with these characters.
Mhm.
Like, for instance, you have the necklace from the sorority house of her boyfriend, deceased
Mhm.
boyfriend, which is canon and with the second film. Then also too with I even mentioned this in the second film movie where basically you have the limp that Dewey has
Yeah.
from the first film, so you actually have the sciatic nerve being damaged.
I think it's worse now.
Yeah, it's a
After the
lot worse.
second after the second time he got stabbed.
Right. So I like the fact that, they actually added his walk into it, the way that he's walking to make it look like he's severely hurt still.
Yeah.
So I like the fact that they keep a continuity kind of thing within the characters themselves, because any other movie, you're like, oh, okay, he's fine. He's not limping anymore after being almost on his deathbed twice. So most horror movies, when you see them using the same cast, they just go on ahead. They don't do any kind of continuity like that, which is something I really like. And then, of
Yeah.
course, like you mentioned, the sorority necklace and stuff like that. I really love that little touch to it.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, she loved this guy, and obviously after all the stuff that happened in part two, she's like, I'm done. I'm out. So I get it.
Exactly.
So yeah.
But I was good to see Randy again and telling,
Yeah.
and then of course that banter of him banging one of the girls at the video store, and then he goes, and then I like how Dewey's like, "You mean that ugly chick? Hey, watch it."
Mhm.
It was late one night. We were putting up porno tapes, and that's how what wound up happening. Because,
Yeah.
anyways, back to the main point here. Either you have to kill the killer in the face, in the head. He's indestructible, and I definitely
Blow him
like how
up.
he broke the rules. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I love that scene. Yeah, like you said, just getting to see Randy again because he was like one of my favorite characters, and I'm so bummed that he died in the second one. So it was really nice that they were able to bring him back in some fashion for the third one. So yeah.
Same here. I just wish they would have done like another videotape or DVD or something of Randy again doing the
Yeah.
rules for this new one, just in case of anything. But I know that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
But okay, so we were talking about that whole entire scene with the dead body and stuff like that because we were talking about Sydney going through the movie set and is identical to her neighborhood, which is scary because even it just shows you how much Dewey actually gave them for
Mhm.
information
Oh yeah.
and how detailed it is. It's detailed to the T as
Oh
far as
yeah.
this goes. It looked
Yeah,
like being
like
on a set of the Halloween franchise. That's how
yeah.
detailed it is.
Yeah. Yeah, it was wild just going into the house and stuff and like her just watching her face as she's kind of looking around inside the house and like in her own room and all this stuff is really interesting. I liked
And of course, there's a Creed
it.
poster in the background of her wall. But at that
Well, I
time,
mean,
when right,
speaking of Creed, like we didn't mention this, but in the opening scene, they're playing a Creed song when she gets out of
right,
the shower. She cranks up "What If." This is I remember jamming to that song so many
me too.
times. It was insane. It was on most of my playlists. It was such a good tune.
And it has a great guitar riff as
Mhm,
well. That's something I really liked. And of course, Creed was actually popular during that time, so it
mhm.
made sense to put them in this world and stuff like that to give them more popularity.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was funny that they actually have Creed playing at the very beginning of this when Cotton's girlfriend's getting out of the shower. Then you also have a Creed poster in the background of Sydney's room.
Yeah.
And Sydney's room, it looks identical to the first movie, all except the Creed poster wasn't there. But then you also have the echoes in her voice of things that happened whenever in the first movie, where it's like, well, do you want to settle for a PG? Would you settle for a PG-13 relationship?
Yeah.
Then it goes into hearing Matt Lillard's character talking, and then you hear Billy's voice. I thought it was very good with the PTSD that you mentioned, because it is very fitting to know that, okay, well, she's dealing with some PTSD and things like that. And then, of course, it opens up with, and of course, she goes through the rest of the house, and there's a murder scene in which they added into that. And we never saw that before in the first Scream movie. So it was like some type of background to let us know as the audience that was actually Maureen Prescott's body that was there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I assumed, was that they were, because this movie is not based on any actual like thing that had happened, whereas my assumption would be that Stab 2 was probably based on the college stuff, was that we saw on Scream 2. Obviously we didn't see any of that. But this one they're just completely making up. So for them to go back in and show the audience Maureen's death, I think that would make sense.
Exactly. And then, like, I also think this too. I think this is Ghost. I don't think it's Ghostface inside the body bag. I'm thinking it's a PTSD moment.
Okay, yeah, because that's what I was like. Because later on, he does it. Yeah, he does essentially imitate what she's seeing here, like towards the end. So it made me wonder. I was like, well, was that him? I was like, but it wouldn't make sense. Why, after chasing her around and all this stuff and trying to get to her, would he stop, put the sheet on in this moment to do that? Like, why wouldn't he just go at her at this point?
Especially when there's also cops around and things like that too. It wouldn't make sense for Ghostface to do that because it's too time consuming, especially if he wants to kill her.
Yeah.
So he would want to isolate her. Right. He would want to isolate her around everybody in order to do something to her, not do some silly gag like that.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking it's just be with the blood, seeing the room in distortion and stuff like that, being distorted, made it that kind of way.
The only thing I could think that would justify why he would do that, if it was him, is to make her feel more crazy. Because, like, when she's trying to tell the detectives and Dewey that Ghostface was in there, she also's like, and I saw my mother. Like, and so she sounds nuts. And they don't really take her seriously because of that. So, like, theoretically, I could see that, but I feel like that's just me grasping for an explanation as to why whether or not it was him. So,
right, exactly. And there's also this other part too. Remember whenever one of the actresses was going to go into the office of one of the other actors and to do this read for the script.
Yeah.
And I liked how they're like, well, damn it, another changes with the screenplay. And of course, we also know the fact that there was actually leaks on the sets and stuff like that. And several different people were reading the scripts, so it's very meta into that situation of what Wes had to do to change the scripts up and stuff from being leaked online. So I thought that was very interesting as far as that goes.
Yeah.
But anyways, but yeah, then after that winds up happening, we wind up seeing, of course, we wind up seeing them take Sydney back over to the police station for safety, and then Dewey and Gail and Jennifer and the remaining Stab cast, Angelina and Tyson, attend a birthday party for Stab 3, 3's director, Roman Bridger. And then also, too, after Gail discovers Roman's body in the basement. But before we get to that, I want to talk about the confrontation with the director.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting.
Real quick,
yeah.
There was one thing I forgot to mention because I had said I was going to mention it when we got to the house on set stuff. When she runs into the other house after the whole like jump out the window, and she runs out. Um, he comes out of a closet.
Yeah.
How the hell did he get in that closet? There's no physical way that he got into that closet. Because she opens it and it's not like how when she's upstairs and she opens the one door and it's just like an empty openness. The closet, like you can see inside the closet, it's not like that. So like, how did he get into this closet? It makes you think there's another killer, but it's not.
Exactly.
And so it's like, how did he physically get in that closet before she got inside that house? You know, I don't know.
As if he was planting it the whole time for her to be there that whole time.
Yeah.
But it does set up for it to be like a third killer, though. And that whole entire thing of it being in like openness and everything feels like a kind of like a Looney Tunes kind of thing that they do, where Sydney runs up the stairs and then of course there's nothing there because it's a set piece, and then she's hanging outside a little bit to where she can actually push Ghostface off, and she goes on ahead and lands on the bed. Yeah. And at that point, that's when the cops come in and then brings her over to the police station.
Yeah.
And then at that point, though, too, Gail and Dewey and them are having a conversation with the director, and the director winds up talking about what women had to do in order to get jobs over into Hollywood, which is very reminiscent to Weinstein Company.
I literally have that in my notes. I was like, is Milton supposed to be like Harvey Weinstein? Because he totally comes off that way.
He definitely does. He's definitely a sleazeball, especially when he goes, well, these women know what they're expecting. It's nothing unusual, nothing uncommon.
Yeah.
Because she knew what she was getting whenever she came into that, because it was a way to work women into this Hollywood business that we have. Yeah. And she met all these people, and that's how she winded up being who she is.
Yeah.
So to be honest with you, he does remind me of Harvey Weinstein.
And it's interesting that far back they would stick that Wes Craven's like, yeah, I'm gonna stick it to him in this way, you know, because that's how he can at that time.
Right. So. Don't forget, I'm sure that Wes has seen some stuff in his life. He's been around this. He's not no stranger to it. That he knows this what goes on within in the walls of Hollywood.
Oh, I'm
so sure. I like the fact that he actually was true to that and wanted to send a message to what it's like for women in this industry to go what they go through.
Yeah.
So I felt like it was a very well played message for that.
Yeah.
So after that, we actually get the fact that Dale, Dewey, and Jennifer are on their way back to probably go to the police station. They get a phone call from supposedly Sydney, and then of course that's when they wind up saying, when Sydney winds up saying, "Well, look, I'm going to go over to this party, over to Roman's party, and see what I can find out over there. Don't worry about me. I'm with one of the police officers. We're gonna be fine." And so they turn back around, and they get there really fast for them.
Yeah. I mean, everything that I've heard about traffic in California and like around the Hollywood area and stuff, I feel like it would not have gotten there that fast.
No, even Cotton had a hard time
just getting back to his apartment.
Right. But Officer Dewey, he managed to be there in like 10 minutes.
He found a way, man. He found a way.
But yeah, then then Roman Badger, after Gail discovers Roman's body in the basement in the coffin.
Yeah.
And
I thought that was a brilliant move on his part. And on Wes Craven's part, because it really throws the audience off away from Roman. You know?
Right. It's like, well, it's not Roman that's the killer, so we can ex-name him.
Yeah.
Because he's dead. He's in the coffin, so he's good to go. So therefore, we don't have to worry about him.
And it was really smart just in the movie for Roman to do that, to put them at a false sense. So like, oh, Roman's dead, so now he can just kind of go off and do whatever he needs to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Ghostface attacks the group, seemingly murdering Angelina when she wanders off alone. And this scene is scary. And don't forget, this is also a mansion. So the first thing that came to my mind was Clue
Oh
for the
yeah,
sequel and stuff like that.
yeah.
So now it becomes like kind of like a who done it, but in a horror slasher movie
And
kind
it's
of
funny
vibe.
because like they were pushing hard, trying to make the audience think that it was either her and or Kincaid as the killer. Like they did both of them. They pushed real hard to get the audience to believe that it was either of them. So I thought that was yeah. Seeing her die, I was like, okay, it's not her.
Right, because it's twice in this movie where they actually think that it's her. Because number one, she was stealing stuff from the set of
Yeah.
Stab.
I love
You
that
have,
scene in the bathroom because, like, we get the homage to the first movie with the boots in the stall.
yeah,
I love that. There's a bunch of stuff like that throughout this movie where they call back to the other two, which I love when they do stuff like that in general. But yeah,
I did
it was
too.
great.
But yeah, she picks up her feet in the stall, and then of course you wind up seeing Sydney kick the door open, thinking that it's actually Ghostface. She has her pepper spray, and then we wind up seeing the fact that this woman is stealing stuff from the set. She
Yeah.
stole a cell phone, which
Yep.
makes you look like that you're actually the killer.
Yeah. The mask, the phone. Like, come on, lady.
Exactly. And then what's even scarier is to see all the ghost face costumes and stuff like that inside this house.
Yeah.
So it makes it stand out of like, okay, so which one's the real ghost face and which one's just a real costume at this
Yeah.
point. So I
Mhm.
definitely like that aspect to it.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And then of course he winds up stabbing her, and then after that winds up happening, you see the other guy who gets thrown out the window.
Oh, yeah.
The-
He gets
So
launched out that window. Oh, man.
after that winds up happening, um, we wind up seeing, of course, after that winds up happening, we also see the fact that she wanders off alone. So then, of course, Tyson and Jennifer, the killer, then orders Sydney to the mansion to save Gail and Dewey, who are being held hostage. When Sydney arrives, Ghostface lures her inside where Gail and Dewey are bound and gagged. As Sydney is freeing them, Ghostface appears, though Sydney gains the upper hand by using a handgun to fight him off. So, what did you think of the fact that when she first arrives, the killer is telling her at the police station as well, "Do not bring the police into this." And then he tells her whenever she pulls up to the house, use the scanner.
Yeah.
And of course, she also got Kincaid's
Yeah, because
gun.
we
Yeah,
see her pull the little gun out of his desk, and so when she does the wand, and obviously she passes over her ankle, and she has to pull, and she pulls that same gun out. I was like, oh man, he makes her throw it in the pool. I was like, oh shit, she lost her gun. But Sydney's smarter than that, man. Had that second gun on her ankle like that. I thought that was brilliant.
that was a good thing on Sydney. And it goes to show you that she isn't the same person that she once was in the
Yeah,
first two movies as well, and shows her strength, which I
yeah,
thought was really good.
absolutely.
And then, of course, we wind up seeing this other thing where Sydney is free. And then, of course, Sydney gains the upper hand. And okay, I'm looking through my notes. Sorry.
Yeah,
Sydney flees and hides in a secret screening room where she discovers by Ghostface, who reveals himself as Roman, having survived being shot by wearing a bulletproof vest.
yep. Yeah, and so then that ties back to the scene outside of Jennifer's, like down the hill from Jennifer's house, where we know Dewey shot him several times, and so then it clicks. It's like, okay, that's how he ended up surviving that because he had just had a vest on that time. There's no way around it. Yeah,
Exactly. And then also, too, Gail also did some investigating. I know that we were going to talk about the Carrie Fisher cameo, though, too, because we wanted to talk about that.
yeah,
So there was also another thing too where they actually noticed in the background of these pictures about 20 to 30, 40 years ago that it was actually the same studio front that they were using for Stab.
yeah,
And then then after that, the only way to get into the archives of everything is to actually know somebody within that organization. So first you see Gail give Carrie Fisher $50.
yeah,
And then you see the actress who plays Gales. What are you doing? Bribing high schoolers? And then she takes off her ring and says, "This is worth at least $2K."
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
but yeah,
I just love that they're like, wait a minute, are you? And she's like, no. I get that all the time. Like she's supposed to she looks like Carrie Fisher and she makes the joke. Um I was up for Princess Leia, but it went to the one who slept with George Lucas, which I thought was hilarious. But it doesn't fit in the context of the movie. It's a hilarious scene. It just felt awkward in this to me. I don't know. Just like the
it
Daily
didn't
Mouse.
land my laugh. I'm going to tell you this: in the movie theater, it didn't even make me laugh. And
Yeah.
then also too, this time it didn't make me laugh either. It just goes to show you how awkward it actually is to actually have that kind of meta joke, and it just
Yeah.
doesn't land.
Yeah. No, I get that. I get it.
Yeah. So after that winds up happening with the Sydney shooting him in the chest, but Sydney survives the shot and stabs Roman multiple times, revealing to him that she too was wearing a bulletproof vest. But
Okay.
we also have
So
yeah,
before that, he gets her down, right? He gets her on the ground and he shoots her in the chest. Why didn't he just shoot her in the head? She ain't going anywhere. He's standing over her with the gun, and for some reason he decides, I'll just shoot her in the chest and hope that this kills her. When he could have just shot her in the head and been done with it. You know, I wrote in my
exactly.
notes, I was like, just like Thor, Roman should have gone for the head.
Exactly. Because just like how Randy said the same thing that killers can only be killed through the head.
Mm-hmm.
So why and anyone can go at any time because she is considered a legendary character now.
Yeah.
So that's
It's
also another thing.
it's like he deserved to die simply for that idiocy. It's like,
Exactly.
come on, man.
But also too, Roman also admits to being Sydney's half brother,
Yep.
born to their mother Maureen. Then, when she was an actress in Hollywood for 4 years prior, he had tried reuniting with her, and only for her to reject him due to him being the product of rape.
Yeah.
And bitter of the rejection, Roman began stalking her, filming all the men she slept with, and showing Billy Loomis's the footage of Billy's father with Maureen, which motivated Billy and Stu Marcher to kill her, thus setting up off the string of murders in Sydney's hometown and at her college. So it was all because of Roman.
Yeah. Yeah. I have, and so I want to get your thoughts on this. Okay, so we see Roman kill multiple times, obviously. Um, and we see him choking out Sydney at one point. My assumption is that he taught Billy specifically how to kill, not just like, showed him like these things, these techniques or whatever, but like actually how, because that's exactly how Billy kills, one handed, and the choking like that. We talked about that when we were talking about the first movie. That's how you can tell when it's Billy doing the killing. And so to see that come back with Roman, I thought that was really interesting. I thought that was a great thing to put in here to tie it into Billy with kind of subtly, really. I thought it was really interesting.
I thought it was very interesting. It was a good callback to the first one, like you mentioned, because of the fact that we actually have Billy, who is actually someone that strangles people versus someone that stabs people. So
Yeah.
I thought that was actually a good callback to that,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So then, of course, you also have the footage. Okay. So, which motivated. Then after that, when he discovered how much fame Sydney had attached due to those events, Roman snapped and lured Cindy out of hiding, planning to kill her and frame her for the murder after Roman kills Stab's producer, John Milton, who's actually the douchebag, ball bag guy that we don't like. Who's actually
He's one of the few that I honestly was like, I don't care that he died. Like,
me
good.
either.
Like, there was no sympathy for me for that guy. Yeah.
And also, too, we end up seeing the fact that he also implies that his biological father and one of the mother was rapists. Sydney furiously denounces him and his motives, provoking an enraged Roman to engage Sydney in a vicious fight, which ends when Roman shoots Sydney in the chest, but Sydney survives like we said before. And this, of course, is whenever she winds up wearing a bulletproof vest. And as Dewey and Gale arrive, a screaming Roman suddenly resurfaces with a knife. Sidney yells at Dewey to shoot Roman in the head, which Dewey does, finally killing him. But I like how they turn around and goes, "Hey, don't we need to go on ahead and shoot him in the head?" And then Dewey's just looking at her like, "What?" And then all of a sudden, you see Roman just rise up and just does like a Superman kind of. You can tell that he was actually trying to get up and try to lay one more into her. And then,
He
of
just
course, that's when
summoned all of his adrenaline for that last.
and
Dewey
then
just like unloads into his chest, and she's like, "Shoot him in the head."
then he finally shoots him in the head, and then that's it for Roman. And then after that, sometime after at Sydney's house, Dewey proposes to Gale, who accepts. Sydney returns from a walk and leaves her gate, which were previously shown to be an alarmed open. She enters her home and is invited to join Dewey, Gale, and Kincaid to watch a movie as she goes to join the others. Her front door blows open behind her and she walks away, leaving it as is, as if to say that there is nothing more to be afraid of because of the fact that the person who started all this is now dead.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean,
So,
as we know, yeah, it's not the case, lady.
no.
Just wait a decade. And it's gonna start again for you.
But yeah, all in all, this is actually the weakest one for me still.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I don't.
even after
Right.
watching it again, like I'm still like, yeah, I enjoy it, but it's still the weakest one. Yeah.
Definitely. It feels disjointed. It doesn't exactly know what it wants to be. 1 minute is a spoof movie, 1 minute is a horror movie, 1 minute is a slasher horror movie.
Got a little
So you have
paranormal stuff going on in it,
right. So it's a mixture of everything rolled up into this one thing to the point where it's like, okay, what's the identity for this movie? What's the identification? And it just doesn't feel like a cohesive story as opposed to the first two films. But still, I really have to say I did enjoy watching this more than I did the last couple of times that I watched the movie.
Yeah.
But still ranks in the lower tier for me still.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So
One of the things that I wanted to talk a little bit about was just how they were able to pull in moments from the previous two movies and kind of mirror them, almost like homage them. We talked about the bathroom stall, scene, which was, a big uh memorable moment from the first movie, like seeing those boots come down in the stall, and then but seeing it almost in reverse in this, I thought was really interesting. That they redid the soundproof glass scene from the set from I think that's the second one.
right.
They did that again in this one with Parker Posey's character, which I thought was really cool. You know, Dewey falling down the stairs, the killer being passed out. Speaking of that, Gail does not know how to check a pulse. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
man, because she checks. I think I think it's Romans when he's in the when he's quote unquote dead. She checks his pulse. He's obviously not dead. We know now, if this was your first time watching it, you wouldn't have known that at that time, but we know he's not dead now. And so like what was she checking? Like did she just not know how? I don't know.
I don't think she
bothered me,
does. She's a news reporter. She's a news reporter. She doesn't really know anything about checking pulses or anything
She's
like
just
that.
like, okay, I don't feel anything. It's fine.
He's
and
good.
then we had Roman using the "we'll be right back" thing, which I thought was a great little callback as well. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff. I think they really tried to make this one unique and different and stand out. But I think that was also its downfall. Like you said, it didn't have an identity, and I think because they tried to do too much with it, I think that was a big problem with it. So
I think so too.
yeah.
So that's going to be it as far as our Scream 3 review. We're going to be doing Scream 4 soon, and then following up with Scream 5, and then whenever Scream 6 comes out, we're going to be doing that. We'll talk about scheduling soon, but that's going to be it as far as this review goes. Josh, thank you again for joining me for this review.
Yeah, man, it was great. I look forward to coming back on for number 4.
Most definitely. And guys, you can also follow Josh on his Twitter account and, of course, on his YouTube channel. I have the links posted in the description box below. So go on ahead, check out his channel. He has a fantastic channel. He also has a fantastic Twitter account as well. And, of course, he does a lot of blogging as well, right?
Yes. Yep, mercwithmovieblog.com.
All right. Get all your information needs and wants over at mercwithmovieblog.com. And, of course, you guys can go on ahead and follow me at Movie Lovers TV Lovers Tonight on all social media platforms, and also to all major podcasts. This episode will also be on all major podcasts as well. But come back on Wednesday night, 8 o'clock Central Time, 9 o'clock Eastern Time for our Last of Us review. And thanks again, Josh, and bye-bye.